Good day, everyone. So, I would like to begin with a question. If artificial intelligence can brainstorm our ideas, solve our problems, summarize our research, and even help us prepare for the workplace, then what exactly are we preparing students to do? This question became the starting point of our study. My name is Azalia Permana, and I'll be representing this research on behalf of my co-authors, Fajar Ramadhan, Candra, Abiyasa, Huga, Aptana, Muhammad Faiq, Farisi, Devon, Todd, Elliott, and Ibu Tatum Syarifah Adiningrum from BINUS International University. Thank you to the organizing committee and the session chair for the opportunity to present at ICISS 2026. The question is no longer simply whether students should learn to use AI. The more important question is what happens to the human capabilities that they are supposed to develop along the way. Our study is titled Gen AI Use and Students' Employability and Workplace Readiness, an exploratory case study of business school students in Jakarta. So generative AI has quickly become a part of our university life. Tools such as ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude can now support activities that traditionally require significant time from students: brainstorming, research, summarization, problem solving, and even content production. And AI can make learning faster and more efficient. It can give students access to perspectives that they may have not considered before this, and it can potentially prepare them for workplaces that are themselves becoming increasingly AI driven. But there's also another side to the story. If students allow AI to perform too much of the thinking for them, then are we actually developing their human capital, or are we simply developing their ability to outsource it? And that tension becomes the central problem behind our research. So the concern is not simply whether students are using AI, but the more important question is how are they using it? There's a significant difference between using AI to enhance your thinking and using AI instead of thinking. So previous research has raised concerns about cognitive dependency and over-reliance on AI, while other research has demonstrated that the employability value of AI-related competencies. What was less understood was how these two come together from the perspective of the people who actually are involved within this ecosystem. So here we asked three questions. First, how do students, educators, and industry representatives perceive the role of Gen AI in employability and workplace readiness? And second, we have what opportunities and risks does Gen AI create? And third, how should business students and business schools prepare for this changing workplace? And our study deliberately brings together the people being educated, the people doing the educating, and the people who may eventually employ them. So we drew primarily on two theoretical perspectives. The first one is human capital theory. So as we all know, education is an investment. Students develop knowledge and skills, and those skills increase their productivity. And this contributes to employability at the end. But Gen AI creates a challenge here. If AI helps students develop valuable new competencies, it can strengthen human capital. But if it replaces the process through which students develop critical thinking and independent thinking, and also independent learning, excessive AI could weaken the very human capital education is supposed to build. And the second lens that we have is cognitive dependency theory, which helps us understand what happens when people increasingly outsource cognitive tasks to technology. And together, these two theories let us examine both sides of the equation: AI as a capability enhancer and AI as a potential source of dependency. And we also found or considered technology acceptance and strategic integration. This basically helps explain something already obvious in universities. People adopt AI because it is useful and it saves time, and it is also very accessible, and it also improves productivity. But simply telling students don't use AI is unlikely to address the real issue here. The question is not whether AI will be used, it's whether it will be used strategically, critically, and responsibly. And that distinction on its own matters for employability, because employers don't simply need graduates who know where the AI button is. They need graduates who can judge what the AI gives them. And with that, we adopted a qualitative research design, conducting semi-structured interviews, roughly around 20 to 45 minutes each, with three stakeholders group, 6 undergraduate business students, 3 lecturers, and both from AACSB accredited business schools in Jakarta, and as well 3 company representatives. And pseudonyms here were used to protect participant confidentiality, and participants were purposefully selected for the relevant experience with AI in academic or professional contexts. And we analyzed the transcripts using Brown and Clark's thematic analysis with data triangulation across 3 groups and research triangulation through multiple coders. Rather than asking, what do students think about AI, we asked, where do these groups agree and where does the tension appear here? And 5 interconnected themes have emerged here, sort of thinking it as a journey. So we start with what AI can give students as a first theme. Then what they need to know to use it well. Then what happens when they depend on it too much. Then moving on to the capabilities that remain distinctly human. And finally, what universities should do about all of this. And the overall team was balancing AI-enhanced employability and the preservation of human capability. So let's start with the benefits first. Participants, as we all know from our research, has generally viewed Gen AI as a valuable tool for learning, productivity, problem solving, and workplace preparation as a whole. One student, Ethan, described asking AI to explain how to do something, and another, the benefit is simply as work efficiency. And Mason said that AI had opened up my mind with a lot more perspectives of how to solve things. And Liam went further with AI definitely prepares you for a modern workplace. So with that, participants were not anti-AI, but they really saw a genuine value in it. So the first message was not AI is a problem, but it was AI is useful. But then it came the important question, useful for what? And that leads us to the second finding. So our second finding provides the first major shift. So participants told us that simply having access to AI is not enough because future employability depends on using it strategically, critically, and also responsibly. This means that several competencies matter. So strategic AI use, prompting competency, AI tool selection, and perhaps the most important one would be critical evaluation of the AI output on its own. So one participant said AI is to help you understand and learn rather than to make it easier on your life. So there is a difference between asking AI, give me the answer, and asking, help me understand how to arrive at the answer. Those are 2 completely different learning behaviors. And participants also emphasize verification. So one student described double checking AI outputs and making her own interpretation. And then a company representative emphasized questioning the validity of AI generated knowledge. So perhaps the AI skill that matters more is not generating an answer, but it's knowing whether the answer deserves to be trusted. And moving on, this is where the story becomes a bit more uncomfortable because participants were concerned that excessive dependence on AI could undermine independent learning, critical thinking, and problem solving as well. Because one participant said a lot of the ways that people use AI do kind of substitute learning and studying. And another one observed that some students ask AI to finish the research and write it for them as a whole. But the most striking comment came from Mason. Sometimes I no longer have the courage to think or analyze something because we have AI. So if a student becomes accustomed to AI providing the first, second, and third solution, what happens when AI isn't available? Can they still reason independently, challenge the answer, or solve an unfamiliar problem? And AI can reduce friction, but sometimes the friction is where the learning happens. And so our next finding, interestingly, the more participants discussed AI, the more strongly they emphasized human capabilities, such as critical thinking, judgment, communication, experience, and empathy as well. So a company representative emphasized that analytical thinking remains crucial, and a lecturer highlighted that they need the need for both AI knowledge and what she called humane abilities. And one student put it simply, AI does not have feelings. So we often talk about AI making human skills less valuable, but our findings suggest almost the opposite. As AI gets better at technical tasks, distinctly human capabilities may become more valuable, not less, because when everyone has access to similar tools, the competitive difference comes from the person using it, such as their judgment, creativity, and the ability to recognize when the AI is wrong. So the future graduate won't be the person who can do everything without AI, but neither will they be the person who can't do anything without it. So with that, what should universities do? Participants called for AI literacy and ethical guidance, clear governance, curriculum integration, foundational knowledge, and assessment reform. One company representative warned students to not simply copy paste or put all their faith in AI. And a lecturer argued that students should act as the quality control for their own work. So instead of asking, how can we stop students from using AI, we should ask, how can we design education so that AI still requires students to think? This could mean changing assessments, requiring students to explain their reasoning, evaluating process rather than just the final answer or the final output, and also integrating AI literacy into the curriculum. So the goal is not to remove AI from education. The goal is to prevent AI from removing the learning process from education on its own. And with that, bringing the 5 findings together, a pattern emerges. So AI can enhance employability, but AI literacy is not simply knowing how to use a tool. It is knowing when to use it, how to evaluate its output, and when not to trust it. And at the same time, excessive dependence can't undermine critical thinking. It's also independent problem solving, which then makes human capabilities increasingly important. So our findings support the idea that AI should complement human capability rather than replace it, because from a human capital perspective, AI-related competencies become a new form of a valuable human capital. But from a cognitive dependency perspective, over-reliance may undermine that same human capital. So we arrive with something of a paradox. AI can simultaneously strengthen and weaken employability. It all depends on how it is being used. So first, we bring together multiple stakeholder perspectives, right? Students, lecturers, and industry representatives. And second, we extended the human capital discussion into the AI era, such as the AI literacy, prompting, strategic use, and critical evaluation as emerging forms of this human capital. And third, our findings provide empirical support for concerns around cognitive dependency. And fourth, our study reinforces the continued value of human-centered capabilities, empathy, judgment, communication, critical thinking. And finally, we offer practical implications for responsible AI integration within the business education. And the contribution is not simply saying AI is good or AI is dangerous, but it is identifying the conditions under which AI could enhance employability without undermining the human capability. So 3 messages in short. First, AI does enhance employability. Participants saw clear benefit in learning efficiency, productivity, and workplace preparation. And second, AI capability alone is not enough. So graduates need strategic AI use, prompting skills, tool selection, and the ability to evaluate these AI outputs. And third, the human advantage still does matters. So as I mentioned, critical thinking, judgment, communication, and empathy still remains essential until this day. So with that, our central conclusion is that future employability will depend less on how much AI we have and more towards on how intelligently humans actually are able to use it. And as we all know, every study has its own limitations. Our industry representation was limited to 3 company industries. So our participants came from AACSB accredited business schools as well, and their research focused specifically on the Jakarta higher education and workplace context. So the findings should not be treated as a universally representative, because this is an exploratory study providing sort of like a foundation for further investigation. And we need broader and more diverse perspectives, especially students' perspectives and longitudinal research, because one of the highest unanswered question isn't just how are students using AI today, but what happens to their capabilities after years of using AI? Does it strengthen problem solving, weaken independent thinking, or does it answer depend entirely on how education teaches them to use it? So we also need comparisons across universities, industries, and even countries to see whether the patterns we found in Jakarta hold elsewhere. So with that, I'd like to close with the question that I began with. If AI can increasingly do what students have traditionally been trained to do, what should universities prepare students to do? Our findings suggest that the answer is not to compete with AI or even surrender to it. It is basically to teach students how to work with AI without losing their ability to actually work without it. The graduates most competitive in the future may not be those who depend on AI the most, but they may be the ones who know how to use AI to become more capable while still knowing when to question it, when to challenge it, and when to put it aside. So perhaps the goal of AI education isn't simply how do we teach students to use AI, but how do we use AI without allowing it to replace the very human capabilities that education exists to develop. And that ultimately is the balance our study is calling for. So thank you very much.